night, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third Athlete Development Workshop. I am Chanel Shalry, the president and founder of Supporting Girls in Sports, and also one of Saint Lucia's representatives for the FIBA Americas Adelante Forum. So a few housekeeping rules. Please ensure that your mic is off during the presentation, and you can turn it off when you're answering or asking a question. If you have any questions, place them in the messages, and also change your name to your real name. And please include your sport and your country so you can be easily identified. And today's presenter is Ms. Gervelle Lafeuillee, and well, she'll tell you more about what she's presenting on. A little about Gervelle. Ms. Lafeuillee is an incredibly passionate, driven, and versatile dietitian who enjoys working with individuals and groups, especially those who suffer from chronic illnesses. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Human Nutrition and Dietetics with the University of the West Indies, graduating with honors. She was also granted the opportunity to deliver the valedictory address at her faculty awards ceremony. She recently completed a diploma in institutional and community dietetics and nutrition with her alma mater, UE, graduating once again, sorry about that, with distinction. Gervelle works her magic with a rich educational background and practical approach to help persons improve their lifestyles. She is currently enrolled as a student at the University of Aberdeen, where she hopes to complete her master's degree in clinical nutrition. She has a special love for fitness, which led to her founding 2 fitness groups in the past and specializing in sports nutrition courses while at school. She also took part in a few marathons for fun while studying in Trinidad. In her spare time, Gervelle also enjoys exploring her beautiful island of Saint Lucia, blogging, and catching up with family and friends. So I present to you Gervelle Lafeuillee, who will be our facilitator for our food workshop.
Thank you, Shari. I am indeed honored to be your presenter for today. And a special good evening to everyone. I know we started a little late, but it will definitely be a very exciting and informative presentation. And I do hope that you will take a lot from it. Okay, so as she said, I am Ms. Lafeuillee and I'm a dietitian. So a dietitian is a nutrition expert in nutrition. And we have gone through extensive training. As you can see, I studied for 5 years prior to this. And we can decide to venture into any field. We can go into sports, we can go into community nutrition, we can go into public health. It is a very, very diverse field. So today I am very honored to speak to you about nutrition for sports success. And we're going to touch on the basics of nutrition for athletes. So again, I am Saint Lucian and I am from Choiseul. So it's just a little bit more about me. All right, so we'll jump straight into it. Also, I would love for you all to be very interactive. I am a firm believer in there is nothing as a dumb question. I accept all questions and I will try my best to answer them to the best of my ability. So today we'll be touching on the importance of nutrition in fueling athletic performance. We are going to look at the components of a balanced diet. Also, the timing of the athlete's meals are very, very important as well, and hydration. So we have an hour and we're going to do our best. All right, so right here I have side by side 2 very different vehicles. All right, this one is a Porsche 911 and this is the Suzuki Swift. Now I don't know much about cars, but I put them side by side to kind of make a point, right? With the Suzuki Swift, its design and its function is basically to allow persons to go about their day-to-day business to drop off their children at school to go to work. And the Porsche is a sports car. So again, its design will have to be in accordance to its function. Whatever it has to do, it has to be designed for that purpose. And so I put this there to say that athletes are like the Porsche 911, the sports cars. Your design is different, your function is different, because, and your needs are different, because you're not like the average individual. Okay, so right here I have two of my favorite athletes, and quite frankly I did not really follow Olympics this year because they were absent, but I think the girls definitely made us proud, and we are still celebrating. So we have Usain Bolt and Johan Blake, and I wanted to ask you, true or false? Do you believe, let's say I was the dietitian and I was going to Tokyo, hopefully that will be, you know, something that can happen one day. If I were a dietitian and I were to go to the Olympics with them, would it be sensible to give the relay team, let's say 4 of them, the same diet plan? So you can put it in the chat. Let me see if I can access the chat. It's kind of closed. I'm not able to see.
Can I answer on here?
Yes, you can. And you can tell me why.
I don't think so, in my opinion.
Okay. Why not?
My justification is simply that they're different people, and so maybe their body types would demand different things. Maybe
Okay.
they'd be stronger or weaker in different areas. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
All right, Ms. Frederick, thank you. I'm seeing Cornelius Breen is opposing that, and he said that I can definitely go ahead. I mean, they're the same relay team. They're from Jamaica. They're running the same race. So I don't know if you would like to share and meet your mic and share with us why you think I can go ahead and do that. Let me see. Okay, so Shinil says no because they're different people. So Mr. Cornelius Brain, Miss Adelante.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you see it. So he's supporting that. No, I don't believe you can give them the same diet. They would each individual athlete have a different method. So you need to assess the athletes. You need to know the individual themselves. So you'd have to do a full assessment of the individual in order to be able to give them a diet that would suit them. So no, you can't give everyone the same diet.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you everyone who shared. I really appreciate that. And yes, you are all very correct. I think Mr. Cornelius really hit the nail on the head. I would have to assess both of them because they would have different nutritional needs. They would have different food preferences. And I will come to the factors in a bit, but you are very much on the right track. So a little, fun fact about the two of them. Johan Blake, he is a very talented young man. He's very talented. However, like many athletes, they fail to accept that nutrition is very important. So at some point in his career, I think it was before he had the trials in 2012, his diet comprised of mainly bananas. So he would eat as many as 16 bananas, 16, every day. And he also admitted to being a fan of the chicken nuggets. So he would consume a lot of the chicken nuggets, and Usain Bolt as well. But Bolt definitely admitted to having to make some changes. And likewise, Johan, at some point, he decided to seek professional help. He got a nutritionist on board, and he had some dietary changes made. And in that year, he was able to qualify for the Olympics, and he actually outrun Usain Bolt's time by 0.11 seconds. So he really improved a lot in that year, and a lot of that was alluded to his diet and the changes that he made. So we're going to talk a bit more about what is the best diet for the athletes. And like you said, there is no one size fits all approach, right? The right diet should reflect the following. It is very personalized, it is customized to meet each individual's nutritional needs. So your age, your gender, your body composition, all of those things would determine your nutritional needs. Your food preferences, culture also plays a large role in the foods that you eat. So also with Bolt, one of the questions that he got at the Olympics when he won, they asked him, what is the secret? What is the secret? And I don't know if you remember, but he said it's the yam. So a lot of people probably never heard of yam before. If somebody probably in Europe were to eat yam, they probably would not like what it tastes like, or they might not have access to it in the first place. So you really have to put into perspective their culture, also their eating habits, their daily schedules as well. So some athletes, they would have to train twice a day. Some of them only train once a day. Also the different sport. So cricketers would require different diets as opposed to probably endurance athletes. So it's really, really different. Also, you have to make sure that it is adaptable and it is flexible. So if the person has to dine out or whatnot, you can account for that in the diet plan. So all of those are just a few of many components that would actually make up an individual's diet. Okay, so we're all Caribbean people. And so moving forward, everything will be in the Caribbean context. And we have developed a model. We have our Caribbean 6 food groups. And in Saint Lucia, this is our representation. So they chose the coal pot, and I felt like that was very appropriate. And as you can see, we have the staples group taking up the largest portion of the coal pots. And there's a reason for that. We will get to see that in a little bit. So the staples would be things like our cereals, so our rice, pasta, corn, wheat, bread, and we have provisions. So we have things like our breadfruit and our sweet potatoes and green pigs. Those would be our staple foods. And these are mainly made of carbohydrates. Okay, following that, we have foods from animals. So our eggs and fish and chicken, meat, pork, milk, all of those are foods from animals. And these are very high in protein. Now, if you do not consume foods from animals, you would more or less get your protein from your legumes. So that would be our peas, beans, and nuts. So lentils, as we can see, some black-eyed peas, some red beans, and some peanuts as well. Following that, we have fruits and vegetables, and we are very fortunate here in the Caribbean to have access to a variety of fruits and vegetables. And right now, I'm really happy because avocados are in season. So I'm very, very, very happy about that. Hopefully I can manifest probably like 2 or 3 after the presentation. I know I live in Choiseul, but still, I'm just putting it out there. And following that, we have fats and oils. And then we have, well, fats and oils would be our mayonnaise and cooking oils, our vegetable oils, olive oils, avocados. And we have a very small segment for sugars and sweeteners because they too have their role. So this is the Caribbean 6 food groups, right? So this is the same thing, but just in a different form. I'm sure some of you might have seen it in that way before. And so what we do in the Caribbean is that we encourage persons to mix the food groups as much as possible. we understand that not everybody is able to afford to have probably foods from animals and legumes and staples and vegetables. So we have come up with what we call the multi-mix principle. So you are able to combine foods and still make it very nutritious. So for example, the 2-mix would probably be something like a staple like rice and peas. And if that's what you can afford, it is still a very nutritious meal. However, if you can incorporate more food groups, for example, let's say we have 4 food groups like rice and red beans and chicken and probably some Chinese cabbage, that would be preferred because we have more food groups, and that would mean we have more minerals and vitamins and more nutrients on a whole to contribute to our diet. So any questions so far on these? Oh, okay. All right. So these food groups, again, were combined based on the nutrient profile. So for example, we have staples, fruits and vegetables, comprising mainly of carbohydrates. Then followed by the legumes and the foods from animals, providing us mainly with protein. And we have the fats. So we get fats from fats and oils, and we also get fats from foods from animals. And then we have some herbs and spices to keep things interesting. Right. Now, this is how our food is grouped based on how much we need in the diet. So we need macronutrients in a larger amount. So the word macro means large. So macronutrients would be our carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, as we just discussed a while ago. And we have the micronutrients that we need in smaller amounts, micro meaning small, and that would be our vitamins and our minerals. But in the interest of time, we will not be able to discuss the micronutrients because we can have a whole session just on micronutrients. It's very, very detailed. So our main focus will be on the macronutrients. As you can see, they are our main source of energy, and they are needed in grams per day compared to the micronutrients that are needed in milligrams or micrograms. But it's not to say that they're not as important. They are both very important. Okay, so we go now to our macronutrient breakdown. What percentage of carbohydrates do we need? What percentage of fats? What percentage of protein? And it really is dependent on many things too, but this is a general guideline. So it would depend on the intensity of the exercise that you're doing, or the sport, the type of sport, and even the position that you're playing. But as a rule of thumb, our carbohydrates are supposed to provide the most energy, followed by our fats. So whereas people believe that, oh, I don't need fats in my diet, but you will come to appreciate why we need fats further down in the presentation. And also followed by protein to provide for our energy needs. Okay, so as you can see, fats provide the most energy per gram. This is in kilojoules, but it is 9 calories per gram, followed by alcohol. Now, alcohol is out of the picture for athletes, but it is very energy dense, as you would say, and it provides no nutrients to the athlete or to the individual. And this is followed by proteins and carbohydrates, which have about 4 kilocalories per gram, sorry. So this is what the energy content of the various groups are like. So why do we need carbohydrates? First of all, carbohydrates let us go. So in primary school, you know, carbohydrates make you go. Carbohydrates provide energy. They are the main source of energy for the body. They are the only source of fuel or energy for the brain. That's the only source that is accepted by the brain and the muscles. So carbohydrates are broken down into sugars, the simplest form being glucose, and They are stored in the body. So they are stored either in the muscles as muscle glycogen or in the liver as liver glycogen. Now, our muscle glycogen stores are what we really tap into when we are running or we're doing exercise. So it's almost like you're going to the bank and you want to withdraw some cash. Would you take the line or would you take the ATM if you were in a rush or you want more convenience? Which one would you take? You take the line? Because I wouldn't take the line in this COVID.
Take the ATM.
You would take the ATM, exactly. So the ATM is more, right? The ATM is more convenient. You go in and you go out. And that is what it's like with the muscle glycogen. You're running and you need a quick source of energy. It would quicker take the energy from the muscle glycogen stores compared to the liver. So our carbohydrates, we need to constantly be consuming them, even during exercise, during a game, sometimes even during a race. You would see the endurance athletes drinking some of the sports drinks while they're running to continually replace the glycogen stores and the glucose that's available for them to run. Right, so that is why carbohydrates are important. So no, carbohydrates are not bad. Okay. Right. So following this, we have different types of carbohydrates. Some are grouped into complex carbohydrates and we have simple carbohydrates. Now, when we have simple carbohydrates, most times this is what comes to mind. So we think of donuts, we think of fries and soft drinks and cookies and whatnot, but there are actually more nutritious simple carbohydrates such as milk or fruit, bananas, for example, that would be incorporated in an athlete's diet. Complex carbs would be things like sweet potatoes and our whole grain breads. This is not the best quality picture, but it was the closest representation that I had for the Caribbean. So you can see your green figs, your pasta, etc. So the main difference, and we will come to understand why we need a bit of both for the athletes especially, is that the complex carbohydrates, as the name suggests itself, they are complex, right? So they are made up of longer chains that take a long time to break down. So the more chains of sugar molecules, the longer it takes to digest and to break down. And so it slowly increases our blood sugar levels and it makes us fuller for longer. So complex carbohydrates would be an excellent choice for, let's say, a main meal like your breakfast or lunch, probably hopefully like 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 hours before a main event or before your training. So you try to have more complex carbs. You'd have perhaps oatmeal and your whole grain bread, etc. The simple carbs would be preferred 1 hour before the event or your training. So for example, like I said, a banana, and these are easier to digest. So it's easier to get the glucose in time for your training. So that is why you need a mixture of both complex and simple carbohydrates. Preferably simple carbohydrates that are nutritious, like what I mentioned, the fruit, and trying to stay away from those that also have a lot of fat, like the cookies and the fries. I just put them there because that's what comes to mind, but preferably more nutritious options. Okay, so we're finished with carbohydrates. And that brings us to our other food group, which is protein. Any questions on the carbohydrates before I move on? Okay, if you do have questions, you can always put it in the question and answer section, and I can come back to it perhaps at the end of the presentation. Right? Okay, so protein now. What comes to mind? Well, we said the foods from animals, and we said the legumes like the peas, beans, and nuts. And some people also take protein supplements, and we will get to that in a bit. But all of these are sources of protein. And why is it important that we have protein in the diet? Protein, again, from primary school, protein helps us to grow. So proteins are the building blocks of life. Every single cell in the human body contains proteins. So from your hair cells, and when I say hair cells, I don't mean this hair, but the hair underneath this. This is plastic right now, but our hair cells are made up of protein, and all the cells in our bodies contain protein. And it is the basic structure, is amino acids. So it's broken down to amino acids, right? Again, this is not the most clear diagram, but it will help me to bring across my points really well. So let's say we had an egg, right? An egg has protein. Our bodies, the enzymes in our bodies would break down that egg into the basic form, like we said, which was amino acids and peptides. Our bodies now will take up that amino acids, will absorb those amino acids, and it will use it to create other things. Okay, so it doesn't like to waste anything. Our bodies are very efficient. They don't waste anything. It will use the amino acids to create our enzymes. So the same enzymes that would break down foods, like our amylase, proteases, and the list goes on, lipases. Our hormones also are made from proteins, and antibodies, something that we're hearing a lot more commonly now. So protein is actually excellent for boosting our immunity because they help to create antibodies. And all the other structural parts of our bodies, like our bones and our organs, they are also made up of protein as well. So that is what proteins do. Proteins, if in excess, will go on to perhaps provide energy for the body, or they might be used to provide glucose, or they might be even stored up as fat, right? So again, it is to break down food, to repair tissue. As athletes, you are constantly breaking down muscle tissue. So you need protein to help build it back up. It is great for improving our immunity and performing other body functions. So there is a constant debate as to whether animal-based protein is superior to plant-based protein, or if I'm a vegan, I need to take this and I need to take that. The answer is you can have adequate protein with a plant-based diet. Okay, it is very much possible, and we can see different forms. We have seeds, we have nut butter, like peanut butter, almonds, tempeh, which is something that we're seeing now in Saint Lucia, and other options as well. The reason why animal protein is said to be superior to or better than plant-based protein is because animal-based protein provides all of the essential amino acids, and I will explain what that is, as opposed to the plant-based protein. So if I were to eat chicken, I would get all of these amino acids in one. Now, these are called essential amino acids because our bodies can only get them from food. Our bodies can make some amino acids on its own. Those are called nutritionally non-essential. But the nutritionally essential amino acids, roughly 9 of them, are only available through our diet. You can only get them through food. So how do we combat that? How do vegans get all of the essential amino acids in their diet, right? What you would have to do is you would have to pair certain plant-based foods or certain foods to get the complete profile. So all of these together, excuse me. For example, if you have whole wheat bread and peanut butter together, you would get all the essential amino acids that you would require, just like if you were to eat chicken or any other animal protein. If you were to pair, let's say, whole grain rice and kidney beans, you would get the whole profile. Again, with the green fig and the lentils, let's say you decide to make a little ital stew or ital broth, you would get the food profile. So you just have to do it in a really smart way. Again, you would have to see a professional, take professional help to see this is the right diet for you and see how you can go about getting everything that you would need as if you were on a animal-based diet. There are a few vegan sources of complete protein. So complete protein means that it has all of the essential amino acids. So you don't have to pair them with anything. On their own, they already provide everything. So quinoa is one example. Chia seeds, or chia seeds as some people say. Tempeh is very new to St. Lucia. I'm not sponsored on it or anything, but I know that they are available at It's Alive SLU. So you can definitely get them there. We also have tofu, buckwheat, amaranth, and this one is a little strange. This one is spirulina, but you can use it in your smoothies, you can use it in baking, you can use it in your cereals, and it is a really excellent option. So this is protein. So any questions concerning the vegan diet, the animal diet, before we move on to fats? I don't want to rush too much. Okay. Okay, somebody said, at what point does the body use protein or fat in the body for energy when it cannot get carbs? Okay, so that's a really good question. Our bodies definitely use, like I said, carbs as the main source of energy. When our muscle glycogen stores are depleted and our liver glycogen stores are depleted, it has to tap into another source of energy. It needs energy from something else. So then it will start to use fat. Okay, and then the last resort will be protein. Right, so after it has depleted all of the glycogen stores, then it goes to fat. But thank you for your question. All right, so we will move on to dietary fat. All right, so dietary fat, as I said, has gotten a really bad rap over the years, but what we need to focus on is the quality of fats and the amount. Dietary fats are extremely important because they provide us with energy, as well as we saw the question previously. They are a source of energy, and they also help with nutrient absorption. So certain vitamins are only absorbed in the presence of fat. And if you are familiar with the term fat-soluble vitamins, these vitamins would include vitamin A, D, E, and K. They are fat soluble. So our bodies would only absorb them in the presence of fat. So you need fat. You need fat for brain function. Our brains are mainly made up of fats. So it is great for that. Nerve functions as well. A lot of the neurotransmitters in our bodies are made up of fat. Fats and oils, admittedly, add a lot of flavor to food. That is why we crave for fatty foods, and we love fatty foods because they taste amazing. That is the truth. And they know that. So they add a lot of fat and a lot of sugar to foods because of that. But it does also add texture to foods. So if you want a really flaky product, then you would need fat. So a lot of the rotis and the croissant, they have a lot of fat. And they also make us feel full for longer. Fat provides insulation. So if you're cold, fat helps us to, stay warm and provide some heat. And it also protects delicate organs. So particularly in females, we tend to have a lot of fat in our lower abdominal area. I know it's a big problem for many of us, but there's a reason for that. And don't say I said, but basically our womb, it's supposed to protect our womb area in that pelvic region. So it is protecting a lot of our delicate organs as well. So that's just a few reasons why we need fat. And Again, as I said, the quality of fat is what is important. So we want to focus on the good fats. As we can see, those are mono and polyunsaturated fats. For example, in my favorites, avocado, olive oil, we have them in flax seeds or chia seeds, and fish. So you can get it in tuna, or if you can afford salmon or mackerel, all of those also have a lot of the omega-3s, and they are the good sources of fat. We do need a little bit of the saturated fats, but the trans fat that we get in the cookies and the processed foods are really what we should try to avoid at all costs. Okay, so now we are going to put everything into context in terms of how to portion out foods for the athletes. Right, so we have easy training. Easy training is basically really low intensity, low short duration exercise. This would be the representation for easy training. So you would have mainly our vegetables and fruits, so half of your plate, fruits and veggies. And then a quarter would be whole grains. I'm sure most of you would have seen this probably before. And another quarter with lean protein. So whether you decide to have plant-based or animal or both, it would be a quarter. Followed by a bit of your fats, so 1 teaspoon, and your beverage of choice. Moderate training, that would be a bit more intense and a bit longer duration. So probably cricketers would fall in that category. And you have like a third with your grains, vegetables, and your lean protein. This one is really hard training or race day, what it would look like on a race day. More or less for endurance athletes who run for more than an hour, 10 Ks, 16 Ks, that's what the diet would look like. So you would have 2 tablespoons of fat, you would have more carbohydrates, more grains, half of the plate, as you can see, and lean protein, a quarter, and the vegetables now have become a quarter. Again, it is because they would need more carbohydrates for a longer period of time. Okay, so we don't want to burn out our stores. We want to have enough to carry us through the entire race or event. All right, what would that look like in terms of the timing of the meals? So 3 to 4 hours before you have a meal, whether it be breakfast or lunch, depending on your training time. If you train in the morning, you might be able to have, let's say you at 7 o'clock, you can perhaps have your fruit and yogurt smoothie with low-fat granola. That's an example of a breakfast item. You can probably have oatmeal, which is complex carbs, as you can see, with our low-fat milk and a banana, a bit of a simple carb here, and some protein and fat. Low-fat cottage cheese and crackers with jam or jelly and fresh fruit. A tuna sandwich, a low-fat tuna sandwich. So that would probably be tuna canned in water as opposed to tuna canned in oil. And a low-fat yogurt with a fruit cup, cereal and milk. And not just any cereal. There are some cereals that are just drenched with sugar. I will not say any particular brand, but there are a lot of them that you have to be mindful of. So try your best to avoid those really sugary breakfast cereals. And a possible lunch item would be pasta or rice with a sauce based on low-fat ingredients. And if you want maybe tuna or lean meat to go along with that. So by the time you're ready for your event, that meal would have already digested and you would have absorbed the nutrients that you would need to take you through your race or your game. 1 to 2 hours before, you might also want to replenish your stores and to prevent you from getting hungry whilst you're there, whilst you're running your race or whilst you're doing whatever it is. 1 to 2 hours before, you can have a liquid meal supplement, you can have a milkshake or fruit smoothie. Now, if you are somebody who is lactose intolerant, you cannot tolerate milk. Some people, you drink milk and it sends you to the bathroom. You know how it goes. Try to avoid dairy before the event, or just try to avoid dairy completely. Sports bars and breakfast cereal with milk. Again, be very careful if you are lactose intolerant. 1 to 2 hours before to, what I want to mainly say is that you want to avoid foods that are high in fat. You want to avoid foods that are high in fiber at that time, because what the fat and the fiber would do is that it would slow down the rate of digestion. So the sugar that you would want to get you going, it would have been absorbed at a much later time. But you need it really quickly and you need it now. So you want mainly carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates preferably. For example, like a banana or an orange, and allow it to digest 1 or 2 hours, and then you can go ahead as you wish. Some other alternatives, if you cannot handle anything solid, if you want something fluid, you can have a sports drink. There are protein waters. I have not seen them available here in Saint Lucia, but there are protein waters that are available, like the BiPro water. It's plainly protein, so no fats, no sugars, just water and protein, as much as 20 grams of protein in this one. There's sports gels, gummies, bars, again, pieces of fruit, or if you can, a sandwich. Okay. So some tips to remember. It is very important that on the day, you do not experiment with anything that is new. Do not introduce any new foods, on the day, because you do not know how your body will react. Let's say, for example, you never had Ensure, and your friend comes with a bottle of Ensure, and you say, boy, you know what, I have 50, or I feel like I need a little sugar, and not knowing that there's milk, and let's say you're lactose intolerant, then you know what would happen. Disaster. So instead of you running down to the finish line, you're running to the bathroom, and we don't want that. So do not experiment with new foods on the day. What you will do is to experiment with foods during the training period before that, so you can keep a record and monitor what reactions your body is having to different foods, what works best, and you record that. You make a note of what works best for you, if it's a sports drink, or if you need food, or if you're better off without any food whatsoever, just before the race or the game. People are different. And like I said, you want to fuel with easily digested carbohydrates. So fruits, those things are very easily digested. Okay, so that was eating before exercise. And now we're going to speak about eating during exercise. Again, you want to have the right blend of carbohydrates, fats, electrolytes. You want to have enough fluids throughout so that you do not get dehydrated. Okay? And also, as we spoke about, having a tailored plan to your needs will also help. Okay, the first one I want to touch on is you need to start with a full tank. So we don't want to, like I said, be hungry, or we don't want to be dehydrated before the game, because we will lose our focus and our performance will be affected, right? This one is eating for recovery. So we spoke about eating before, eating during, and how do we recover? Some persons who train twice for the day, they would have to recover and have to replenish for the next training session. Or you would still have to replenish for the training session the following day or the day after. And there is a lot that we would have to kind of discuss about that. So the main goal of restoring is to replace the fluids and the electrolytes that we lost during sweat. So our body uses sweating as a way of cooling down. It's not anything bad. It's our natural biological response, but we lose fluid and we lose electrolytes. So we have to replace that, especially if we're endurance runners or we're doing any type of sport that requires a lot of endurance. You would have, that's like probably 60 to 90 minutes or more. You would have to restore with a sports drink. Plain water would not cut it for you at this point. So you would have to replenish with a sports drink or sports gel at that time. You need to also have a bit of protein because your muscle fibers were working. You were running all over the place. There was a lot of damage to your protein, your muscle fibers, and you need protein to rebuild that muscle. So you need to replace with protein. Okay, again, this one is with regards to protein. And the best time to have that recovery meal or that recovery snack would be within 15 to 60 minutes of training. So that would be the ideal time, the best time to recover. Okay, we spoke about the water. We want to focus on high carbohydrates. So more carbohydrates, moderate protein, and low fat. So some examples of the snacks that we could probably have after. So sometimes you might feel like you cannot really tolerate a meal, so you'll take a snack. So you can have the smoothies made with yogurt and fruits or sports drinks, example, Gatorade. So after a marathon, for example, I used to run 5Ks at school, and we would have Gatorade booths throughout. So Gatorade, people used to throw away Gatorade bottles. I used to, really feel that, but they used to throw away Gatorade because it was so available. And sports drinks would be the best thing to recover, to help you recover. Sports bars, low-fat chocolate milk if you can tolerate dairy, bananas, crackers, and peanut butter, cereal bars. So these are some ideas. And the meal ideas that you can use. So remember, we want high carbohydrate, moderate protein, low fat. So it could look like a sandwich. So you can use whole wheat bread, tuna in water, or lean beef and vegetables. So you have your lettuce, your tomato, and you make your sandwich. That's kind of simple, easy to carry around. Pasta in tomato sauce with canned tuna. Again, very simple, but carbohydrate rich. Steamed fish with rice, Chinese cabbage, sweet peppers, carrots, and rice. So those are just a few of the meals that you can have, so you can have an idea. Okay, so as I said, it's important if you have 2 training sessions a day, and if your appetite is low, choose liquid foods like the shakes and the smoothies and the sports drinks. Right, and the last component that we're going to talk about is hydration. Okay, so water actually makes up 50 to 70% of our total body weight, our total body mass. So more than half of your body mass is water. And it is needed for our blood volume. So our blood is made up of water, and that is what we need to bring about the nutrients in our bodies. So all the vitamins, all the minerals, everything that we broke down is transported by the blood in our bodies. Water is needed to regulate our body temperature, to lubricate joints. So as an athlete, you need water. It's also helpful in muscle contraction. So we don't want any cramps or anything like that on the day, because we know that can really affect our performance. So staying hydrated is key. So how do you usually know when you are dehydrated, or how do you feel when you're dehydrated? So I've been speaking for a while, so I want to hear from you. How do you know when you're dehydrated? Put it in the chat, you can unmute your mic. Okay.
Your mouth may be dry.
Right.
Or lightheaded.
Thank you. Very good. Anybody else? So these are the two most common ones, actually. All right. So some of the things that could happen as a result of dehydration would be muscle cramps. So there are different levels of dehydration. There's mild dehydration that she spoke about with the headaches and the dry mouth. But there's more severe dehydration, and you can be nauseous, you can have vomiting episodes, you can have diarrhea, stomach discomfort, muscle cramps, and it really delays the recovery of an athlete. So it is important that they hydrated before and during and after each session. Okay, also, it decreases your physical performance because you are fatigued, you're tired. You cannot think as normally as you used to or you should. You have impaired skills. So your coordination skills are not the greatest at that point. You have increased heart rate and your body temperature also increases, and that's kind of to compensate for the blood volume. You don't have a lot of blood basically circulating in your body. You have increased perception of difficulty. So something that would have been so easy, running the 100 meters was so easy for you, but you dehydrated and that 100 meters looks like 8,000 meters. And that is simply because you do not have enough water, you have not hydrated yourself properly. One important thing is that you do not rely on thirst as an indicator. First, by the time you feel thirsty, it is already too late. You're already on your way to dehydration. So you do not rely on thirst as an indicator. You have to continually be hydrating, as I said, before, after, during. Okay. Again, if you dehydrated, it increases your risk for heat stroke, for heat exhaustion. In severe cases, it can actually lead to acute kidney failure if it's done consistently, and death in the worst case scenario. Right. So in some countries that are more temperate, you know, in the Caribbean, it's really difficult, and we especially need to hydrate in that hot climate. But in some more temperate countries, there's a lower rate of sweat loss. Or if you are training at a low intensity, you might not think that you need as much water, or you might just skip hydration period. But you need to continue to drink again for the same reasons. Drinking too much fluid as well can cause diluted electrolyte levels in the blood, and it can cause the same headaches, disorientation, and even coma or death. But that is very rare. That is very rare compared to not hydrating enough. So you can gauge your hydration status by monitoring your urine color and volume, and you aim for a pale yellow urine as a sign of adequate hydration. So this is the urine color chart. Now, well, I know some of you know my nephew, but my nephew is a cricketer, and his sore point is drinking water. So I'm constantly drilling the importance of water, drinking water, and he just refuses to drink water. So one day he was in the bathroom and he called me, said, Gervelle, because he doesn't call me auntie anymore because he's almost 18. But he said, Gervelle, guess what? So I made a joke with him. I was like, no, I almost said that, you know, I almost said that. But my pee is actually clear. That's what he said. My pee is actually clear. But he was so excited and he was so happy because he knows that in most cases, he would be severely dehydrated and he would probably be at this spectrum right here. So again, it is important for us to monitor our hydration status using our urine as a guide to let us know whether we need to drink more water or need to drink less water, etc., etc. So that is one guide. Again, the same thing with diet. No one size fits all in terms of how much water you would require. So it is individualized. Each person would require different amount of water than another individual. So there's no one size fits all. Just some pointers. You can try to have at least 5 to 7 milliliters per kilogram body weight. That is just a general guideline that we use at least 4 hours before training and competition. So you're drinking that consistently. So every 15 minutes or so, you're drinking a certain amount of water. And 8 to 20 ounces before training, probably 20 minutes before training. So yeah, so like I said, drink 4 to 6 ounces every 15 minutes up to the last hour. You want to be careful not to drink too much, not to drink excessively, because that can cause increased urination and stomach discomfort. Okay. Some persons after exercise, they would drink their fluids with a salty snack to help to absorb more water. Salt actually helps to stimulate thirst. So in bars, you would find they would sell a lot of salty snacks, so peanuts and whatnot, just so that persons would want to drink more because they're more thirsty. So anytime you have anything salty, let's say you had salty food, you would want to drink more water. So that is just one way of encouraging you to drink more water. So having a little salty snack like crackers or whatnot would help. Some other practical tips to stay hydrated. You can use your own bottle. So I have a little picture right here to stay on track, to see, okay, I've drunk 1 liter for the morning and I have 1 liter again to go for the evening. That's just an example. You can choose fluids with electrolytes to drive thirst and fluid absorption. Yes. So our sports drinks have the electrolytes and the sugars in the right amount that we need for the best absorption. You can add ice to bottles and store in coolers. You can have crushed ice or fruit juice like fruit lollies. Some people make that. You can use wet, cool towels around your neck and face. So you could see a lot of athletes with the towels around their neck, on their face. Whilst running too, you would see a lot of the athletes, instead of drinking the water, they would pour the water on their heads, and that would help them to speed up the evaporation process and feel cooler a lot faster. Sit in an AC room or in front of fans like I'm doing right now because it's really hot. So you can do that. And also avoid alcohol consumption at all costs, because alcohol is a diuretic, meaning that it can cause us to urinate a lot more. If you observe somebody who drank a lot of alcohol, you will find them urinating a lot more. So alcohol does that. So we do not want to consume alcohol for that and many other reasons. Okay, and this brings us to the end of the presentation. It was a lot, but I hope that we can clarify some things in the question and answer section. I see some things in the chat, so I stayed away from it for a bit. Yes, so somebody said by the time you feel thirsty, you are too dehydrated, the color variant, right? For your skin, right? Yes, so your skin, your lips, all of those are signs of dehydration. Dry skin, dry lips as well. Okay, so thank you so much for your attention and for being so interactive. We still have not come to the end. We have to answer a lot of questions right now, but thank you for staying attentive through this presentation. Yes, so we'll go to the questions. Again, there's nothing like a dumb question. I'll drink some water because I'm dehydrated. I'm dehydrated. Anything that you'd like me to go through again or explain? I take it that you guys understood everything. So I guess we have no questions. Going once. Okay, going twice. So I guess that brings us to a close.
I think we have two questions. Well, I asked the question and someone else asked the question.
Okay. So she asked, could you explain about glycogen in the body? Okay, what exactly about glycogen?
I continued, well, in the muscles. You mentioned about glycogen in the muscles.
Yeah.
What exactly is its purpose? How long is it there for? Does it regenerate? Just a little bit about glycogen, because I'm not real familiar with it.
Okay, all right. So when our bodies break down the carbohydrates that we get from different foods, it's the simplest form, it's glucose. If we don't use the glucose, it's stored as glycogen. So it kind of is a bit more compact and it's stored in our muscles. And this store can last up to 24 hours. And so we would need to replenish it. So that's why on a morning when you get up, you usually feel hungry or whatnot, and you probably heard of the term you have to replace your glycogen. So after 24 hours, you have to replace your glycogen. So you eat again and you break your fast, and with your breakfast, you would be replacing your glycogen stores. So yeah, so that's one way in which our body stores the glycogen in our muscles. As I said, it's very quickly used up, and in terms of endurance exercises, you would need to have maximize your glycogen stores by eating a lot of carbohydrate foods in advance. So some people do something called carbohydrate loading, where they try their best to store as much glycogen as possible so that it would keep them for a long period of time. And then they would tap into the glycogen that's stored in the liver. Yes, and then after these stores have completely run out, then you tap into other energy sources like the fat and the protein. So glycogen is basically, it's like sugar that is restructured. Yeah. Not as dense as carbohydrates, but it's like that. So I hope that answers the question.
You answered my question.
Okay. Chanel says, do I offer nutrition plans for athletes? Yes, I do. My page, I do have a page on Instagram. It's called Gervelle Nutrition. I will probably leave it in the chat. So you can always reach me there and we can discuss. So I'll leave my email address and I will leave my Instagram for those of you who also use Instagram. Yes, any other questions? Chanel, you said you had 2 questions.
Oh, I have another question. The other one. Who do you think uses the services of a nutritionist? I think, well, in Saint Lucia, do you think it's athletes are more open to that decision or option compared to
Okay.
the normal person who just wants to lose weight and get fit.
Yes, athletes do have access to these services as well. There are many dietitians, including myself, on island. Healthy individuals, persons who suffer from chronic diseases as well, so persons who are looking to manage their blood sugars, their blood pressures. Some persons also hire dietitians or nutritionists for weight management. So if you're looking to lose weight or to be at a certain weight, let's say you're an athlete and you need to be at a certain weight for competition and whatnot, you can also seek their services as well. And yes, we do a lot of education. For example, like this forum, this is a way in which we educate the public. So we do a lot of these programs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
No more questions from me as yet. I suppose if I have any more, I'll be able to contact her with the information she provided. But I would just like to let you know, Ms. Lafeuillee, that I really appreciate the presentation this afternoon. It was very informative, and I don't know about the others, but I learned a lot. And it brings back things. Some of it, we kind of forgot from, like, when we were trying to learn theory, food and nutrition in school, and then years passed, and it's like, yeah, oh yeah. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this presentation for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. It definitely was. And I did enjoy the process of preparing the presentation. Like you, I went back into the sports aspect of it, and it really brought out the science and everything that I really love. So I enjoyed it, and I was really honored. I am really honored to be your presenter. And hopefully we can get to go a bit more into it in the future. Yes.
Thank you. Well, like Maricon said, thank you so much for agreeing to be our facilitator. I think we learned a lot, and it was a refresher for some, but new information for others. So I hope we get to do this again. So this is a partnership we'll definitely keep and see where we can explore other options.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
Have a good night.